Jesse Ibanez, Greenhouse Group.
Should we both do this while we talk?
Yeah,
This is like the
the conch. Yes, pull it closer.
Yes.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good to be here.
Good. Well, we just
Love us some good life.
dude. It's been fun working together. You're selling a lot of properties for our clients, some good outcomes, some
Heck
Ben
yeah.
Picos, some other clients. Shout out to that have been really satisfied, and so we're appreciative of that. And you know what's going on the ground, and so we want to bring you in to just give us a on the ground kind of like what's going on. We all kind of know macro, what's happening a little bit with the sales market, but what should we know about as far as where have we been over the last 6 to 8 months? What are you seeing now, and where are we going? So what's been going on the last 6 to 8 months? I would say things have kind of shifted a little bit since they tightened the screws on the lending.
And I'm even going to push back a little bit just for the sake of a good conversation. I don't actually think that a lot of people know what's going on in the macros.
Yeah, true.
I think what's happening right now is that everybody sits inside of this echo chamber, and the way that we all consume information has now been so segmented that it's more confirmation bias than it is novelty. So actually, I'll even put you back on the spot. Like, what's your version of the macro?
So if you flip on my YouTube channel, it's all doom and gloom. I watch the markets going south quick videos, and so I get served up those videos.
Yeah.
And it's in the echo chamber. So, you know, I think we're due for a correction, right? Affordability is the worst it's ever been. It's going to happen at some point, but like, how helpful is that? I don't know. To the conversation.
So, and you know, to get technical, because we like data, you know, it helps either to use confirmation bias of our own stories or narratives, or provide some type of different perspective. If anybody's going to drop blindfolded like a game show into any market, what you're going to do to survey whether that's a viable market is what we refer to as the affordability index, right? And that's the triangulation of how much are prices going for in that relative market right now? What are the average incomes for the same market? And then to balance that off for leverage, like what can I borrow at, right? So in San Diego County, man, it's one of the lowest out of the major metropolitan areas that we track. Luckily, within the state, one of our major migrations have been from San Francisco and LA over the last 3 years.
Tech people?
Yeah, because what are those markets doing? Macro, they're even worse than us, right? So you zoom in and there's a massive migration. A lot of people are leaving the state. That's been a big headline for post-COVID. But the story that they're not telling, which is actually a good one for San Diegans, is a lot of folks are pulling up stake in those two markets and moving down south because they don't actually have to be married to their work physically anymore, and they don't want to leave the state, right? Because that makes it easy. And what climate would you rather be in, right? LA is a similar climate, but would you rather live in LA or San Diego? Right? So we look at this affordability index. It's actually going down as we speak right now, and it's at, I want to say it's in the like 30s or low 30s, which is pretty bad. Like for reference point, 100 would be ideal.
Yes.
So if you're moving in and there's a number of 100 that represents the affordability index, you're stoked.
Okay.
You're ready to rock. Like breaking out checkbooks and you're making promises. Okay. You can see we're close to the abhorrent level with those low numbers. I believe it's like low 30s or something.
Yeah.
So when you look at this macro level, okay, like that's maybe not a great place to start. That's maybe paying homage to the doom and gloom scroll. Okay. The challenge right now, though, that we're facing in terms of inventory is that we're sitting at about at least a half stack, if not maybe 40% of normal deal flow. Okay. Now, this is for a good reason. People are entombed right now inside of their 3%, 3.5%, maybe 4% interest rate, whether you're on either side, ownership or whether you're an investor. Why would you sell right now?
Right.
Unless you absolutely have to, right? Unless you, what is it, the 5 Ds? And I'm not even gonna remember it, right? You know, divorce, disability, death, displacement, whatever. Like the thought of doing something right now doesn't make sense writ large. When if you're borrowing at, I think it's $700,000 at like 4%, it's like $3,400 or something. Okay, if you're borrowing at $700,000 at the high sixes, which is what it is right now, it was in the mid sevens, by the way. We're at a bit of a respite. High sixes, you're at like 45 and some change. That's a 35% delta.
Yeah.
Who's doing that?
Right. And have you seen things start to loosen up? Because I know the zeitgeist early, let's say March, April was, oh, they're going to lower interest rates in October, so I'm going to be patient. Now it seems like it's going to be maybe a little bit longer. Are you seeing more people making that move to put their property on the market? Has the data shown that yet?
It's tricky, man. You know, maybe it goes back to your point, like people right now that I'm seeing that are selling because they have a strong desire to sell, right? It's not like the fair weather sellers, right? Or the dipper and the tozers. So it looks like we're still probably going to have maybe another rate or two increase. They're slowing it down. So now they're doing meetings where they're not actually doing anything. If they do, they bump it up a quarter. It seems like we finally got CPI. Inflation is obviously going to trail that. The Fed funds rate is going to mirror that. 30-year fixed rates all tend to kind of mirror that. So the hope is it's going to kind of round off, and they're looking at maybe like middle 24 right now is their best forecast estimates. So I don't imagine anything too exciting is probably going to happen in the delta of right now as we wrap up the 23 season, go into the beginning of the 24 season. But here's the part that's crazy. Okay, so this is where the Hollywood shift comes on, right? Suspenseful music cued. So if you're one of those people who's trying to strategically wait on the sidelines to get into either a home you're going to live in, owner-occupied, or an investment property, and you're moody and miffed right now about the fact that your buddy next door is bragging at the cocktail party that he got a 4%, and you're staring down the barrel of maybe a high 6 or a 7, and you're feeling very entitled about that. Well, play out the opposite scenario, and this is a very unpopular take right now, right? Because everybody's hoping and clamoring for the big fail, right? The big doom and gloom, the market's gonna crash, everybody's clamoring for that silent, oh, we're gonna take advantage, we're gonna come up, and I'm gonna be rewarded for my patience. BS, baloney. It's probably going to look like this. It'll probably remain pretty boring, just like we said. And then once they start lowering rates, meaning the Fed funds rate, what's going to probably happen to mortgage rates? Go down, they're going to start tracking that. So when money becomes more affordable, what's going to happen with demand? We already right now have an imbalance of supply versus demand as it is. So you got to think of this now. It's going to probably feel and look like this big, gigantic rubber band that's slowly being pulled back, taut, stronger, ever since what? April of last year when they started messing with the monetary policy. And when that goes, it's gonna snap, okay? And we don't have enough inventory right now to compensate for the demand that currently is afoot, let alone the demand that's gonna come down the pipe. So then what's gonna happen with prices? They're gonna go through the roof. Right? So what you're doing right now as a buyer, and legitimately so, is you're looking at the wrong direction. You're looking backwards, and you're looking about what the market was that's not probably ever going to be anymore. When maybe the opportunity would be to look into the future and see what happens when this rate thing corrects itself. Yeah, the prices haven't gone down. Yeah, no one wants a 7% rate, but if you lock it in right now, what you're doing is you're solidifying your price point from future losses of it going higher. Then when the rates do go down, you've already locked in your price point, so you can benefit from the run up, but then you can also refinance. So rather than waiting for the rates to go down and have that be your purchase loan, you can buy now, let the rate go down, lock in your price, and then refinance later.
Yeah, getting ahead of it, and especially if it's something you're gonna live in for 3 to 5+ years. It's probably smart. I like the take in the sense that it's anti-zeitgeist, anti to what I think a lot of people think as far as the market going to go down. But yeah, it's interesting. You hear inventory so low, but demand's actually low too, with interest lower.
But it still usually overcompensates the amount of supply.
So if we see a small uptick, and I want to get your comment on this, is that I hear if we get a small uptick in supply, let's say from Airbnb people not wanting to hold their property anymore because they're not making money, or whatever it is, or people just capitulating that, hey, I need to move to Minneapolis finally because I can't wait any longer, then that could drive prices down further. So is there a scenario where that happens and what you're saying also happens? Like we see a lower go, but then ultimately that rubber band snaps and we see higher demand?
Brother, you and I, we don't just play this on TV, not the hair club presidents, we're also clients, right? I'm an investor. You're an investor. I hope that happens, right? That would be a great scenario. If we could find that beautiful nexus where the rate chills out a little bit and then supply bumps up, and then we actually go out there and start behaving like buyers again, like the good old days, right? I don't even know how long ago that was when we felt that way, but I just don't see it right now, absent of maybe like an economic cataclysm, right? Which would just like undermine us all. Right. We just passed, the horrible memory of what happened in New York, right? Like something really crappy something that nobody can really account for, that kind of just knocks out this already fragile dollar and fragile economy. Like, absent of that, it just seems more likely that that other rubber band scenario is probably going to play out.
Cool. Now give us what's kind of happening on your different property type as far as activity level. Like if you have a condo, Mission Valley, built in the 80s, let's say, you put it on the market, are you getting 5 offers? And what about the house in, Carmel Valley that's at $1.1 million? Like where are the different, what's going on in each market type? Give us a brief overview.
Yeah, I would say there's a buyer right now for every market type.
Okay.
So we're not really seeing like, the 2.5 million and above is really getting its head kicked in, like some of those narratives.
It's easy to say stuff like that.
Some of those narratives were popular during like the Great Recession. Like there was categories that were just getting hammered, or like Eastlake as a geographical category was just getting hammered. Like we're not seeing that.
Okay.
We're seeing mostly indemnity around the board and all.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, like there isn't really an area that's getting hurt or hit right now. It's just that it's not maybe growing as fast as some of the gains that we saw in the last 18 to 24 months. And that's not a bad thing.
So if I'm a seller that has to sell, what should I expect? How are you prepping clients? Assuming I'm willing to price it somewhat reasonably.
Yeah.
Is it going to go?
It's beautiful. It's actually both answers were the predicate of your first question too. So in this market right now, because people aren't getting a respite of price, okay? It's not happening. As a matter of fact, like I said, we're still getting slight increases in appreciation, okay? So the price, fall off the face of the earth doesn't seem to be a coming, okay? So they're not getting a break on that. And they're getting hammered to the tune, like I gave earlier, of about 35% in payment in the delta between their buddy next door. So where's the respite? Where's the gain? What buyers right now are trying to solve for is what we call turnkey move-in ready, right? Like, yeah, you could get something all cash that's a fixer, and that's always going to be a market. But for everybody else, if you just have like a dated home, that's builder grade from 1975, and you got like the disgusting little tile with the grout that's falling apart and the fixtures that have never been updated, like those are having a hard time moving right now because you're not getting a big break on price to justify it. And then as a buyer, you're having to look at the option of moving in, paying the high price, paying the high payment, and then signing up for a remodel budget. Which, by the way, we all know how expensive labor and materials and costs are right now for any contracting projects. So there's no respite for them. So those are the properties right now that are having a little bit harder of a time. Like if it's move-in, turnkey ready, dude, those are going first weekend.
Oh yeah, I'd be very scared. That's a great point of those mini remodels because the price of everything, it seemed like it came down and then now it's going kind of back up. So that's really interesting. So what about on the mortgage side? Is there anything creative people are doing? Can you have the seller pay $30,000 towards your points? Like what can people get a lower rate, or what's happening in the mortgage world that maybe we should be aware of?
I wish more. The one thing that was actually really good, again, maybe unpopular opinion take number 2 on this conversation. One thing was really good about like the middle aughts, right? The 2004-5 market before it imploded was there was a lot of options in mortgage. There was a lot of nuance. Like the idea of anybody in their first purchase or even their second purchase getting a 30-year fixed loan is kind of crazy because no one holds their loan for 30 years typically, right? You're either refinancing, you're removing, you're selling it, or whatever. So like the idea of like ARMs were way more popular, but then when everything got homogenized, there was no benefit to it. You might as well get the 30-year fix because it was basically the same rate as like the 5 or 7-year ARMs.
Were so low.
Everything was homogenized, right? So what we're starting to see lenders do a little bit more now is say, hey, there's a stalemate going on in the deal flow of the market. We're dying. Buyers want solutions. Can we creatively come up with ways to try to supply that demand? And so, for example, Jeremy, we actually just did a podcast about this last week. They're starting to come up with like down payment assistance type of programs and stuff to where they will help offset the down, which is still a big problem right now for first-time home buyers because the prices are so high. I mean, they're ridiculously high. The median right now for San Diego County is like 7 figures. Like when did that happen? You know what I mean? So good luck coming up with a down payment when you're a first-time buyer living in this economy, and so they're coming up with solutions for that. Obviously there's details and programs and stuff, but one of the things that's always been tough about San Diego is that just to live here, you usually make a good amount of money. And that's been the problem with down payment assistance programs in the past is they want you to basically be poor.
Like I heard Zillow had a down payment assistance program of 1% or something. Is that what you're alluding to?
No, like how else would you call that? Income specific programs where it's like they don't want you to make too much money
And it's hard to qualify for
It's
those.
really hard to qualify for those, right?
Okay.
So they're being more liberal with those now to open up the pool to be able to have more people take advantage of those.
Got it. Okay.
So we're starting to see those come online. And that's a no money down program, by the way, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. That's really interesting. So anything else we should be aware of as far as the real estate market, or what our viewers should stay tuned to?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most curious about is something that a thread you pulled on there mid-conversation a couple minutes back, which is where is short-term vacation rental market right now, post licensing and all that stuff, and where is that heading in the next 5 years, and what's the impact that that's going to have, real talk, real boots on the ground on the street, to this overall conversation about lack of inventory. I think that's the thing I'm most curious about moving forward, because I just think it's kind of an unknown quantity. You heard a lot of the people against short-term vacation putting all these egregious stats out about how much of the inventory was actually part of this contingent. And then they went into the lottery and they didn't even have enough people to even submit the deal. So then you're like, what? Those are two massive extremes. And so I'm really curious to see where the truth is.
Yeah.
And I don't know exactly how we're going to get there because it's going to take enforcement. But I would say, especially from an investor perspective, that's the call I get the most, even though rents have done great.
What is the call? What do you mean?
People that want to get into short-term vacation rentals.
Okay.
Right? That's the number one call, right?
Yeah.
They watch some 3-minute YouTube video and next thing you know.
They might be a little late to the game because, that market is oversaturated quite a bit in different, I don't know specifically about San Diego. It's not my business.
Right.
I know there's lots of markets getting hit pretty hard, and if there is a black swan event or something that could trigger inventory going higher, I saw New York outlawed vacation rentals in the city. Saw an article recently, so I think that's something to keep our eye on generally. And I'm really interested in I don't know if the stats came out for August yet, but tell me what you think about this. But I really think we always get that bump in the summer on price. So what's going to happen in August and September? Do we generally see declines? I know we do in sales volume, but also in sales price. And might that be a tell? Should we keep our eye on August and September numbers and see if that's an indicator of a macro trend?
Great call. Yeah, it's interesting. I just had a conversation. I was on a panel on Monday and we were talking about this. And this is actually a really fun fact. So we live in this world of this crazy 360 news cycle.
Yeah.
Where every year there's this new thing that's changing the market. 1 year it's COVID, and then there's an election, and then it's rates, and there's all this chaos. But what's super interesting is that when you just quiet it all out and the cacophony goes to silence, and if you look at just the transactional numbers, do you know that to a very, very small degree and percentage of variance, about the same amount of homes sell every single year no matter what?
I did not know that.
Now, I'm curious to see what's going to happen this year, because we've been working on that half stack of deal flow for a while now. And it wasn't like the first quarter was hot sauce, okay? Yeah, so I don't know if it's going to hold up this year. This could be an anomaly. But I love that thought, though, because it's whose agenda is it to trigger our fight or flight response at all times? Is that your agenda as an investor, as a homeowner, or is that someone else's agenda that's trying to get your attention to maybe sell you something, or at least sell you their attention? Right? Yeah. And so as I look at where we're at right now, we're going to be going into the fall, and if you oversimplify it, it's always kind of a bell curve. The first couple months are always boring, called the New Year's hangover, right? No one ever does anything in January, February, and then it picks up in that early spring season. It's always kind of fun. Everybody's excited to do something. The summer does its thing. Fall's always a wild card. Fall's always emblematic of how strong the overall market is. If it's hot rocks, then fall looks like summer. If it's not a strong market, then fall starts to look like winter. So fall kind of takes on the overall dynamic of what's happening writ large. And then you always have a little bump up at the end of the year for people selling and doing stuff for tax purposes and fiscal reasons. And I really don't think it's going to be any different this year, because I don't see anything changing dramatically in the rate game. Again, fingers crossed that we're now moving in the right direction. And definitely not in the inventory game. So we're probably just going to continue this little trend off until something changes. And I imagine the thing that's going to probably change the most is going to be the lowering of the rates, which hopefully starts to happen in 24 policy.
Nice. Well, Jesse, thanks so much for coming in. Greenhouse Group, real estate sales guru, good life friend, partner.
You bet, man.
Appreciate you.
Love you.
All right, love you.
Cool, man.